In the 10th year of my secret love for Ethan, we spent a reckless night together. 2 months later, I was pregnant. At a party organized by my best friend, Ethan arrived late, a beautiful woman in tow. Everyone teased him, demanding an introduction. Ethan, ever the smooth operator, announced, "This is my girlfriend. It took me a long time to win her over, so please keep it down and don't scare her." I looked up and met his almost cold gaze. In that moment, I understood. Some things are best left buried in my heart forever. The smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils, but my mind was a blank slate. The test results scattered beside me felt like a hot potato, too scorching to touch. I never dreamed that one reckless night with Ethan would have such consequences. Oh, a woman's voice suddenly broke my train of thought. I realized a stranger had picked up my test report and was beaming with joy. She said, "What a coincidence. Our due dates must be around the same time. I know a great postpartum recovery center. We can get a group discount of a few thousand if we sign up together." Her forwardness caught me off guard. I quickly gathered the reports, stuffing them into my bag, and waved her off, saying, No, that's okay." I hurried to the parking lot. As the surroundings grew quieter, my heart began to calm. My phone vibrated violently. My best friend, Chloe's name flashed on the screen. "Hello." I took a deep breath, trying to sound as calm as possible. "Ava, what have you been up to? You haven't even asked me to go shopping," Chloe grumbled, though her tone wasn't accusatory. I chuckled lightly and explained, "It's almost the end of the year. The company is pushing for results. I'm working like a dog from 9 to 10 every day. TSK. Chloe said with a sigh, "You're just making things hard for yourself. Isn't the money Ethan gives you enough?" I didn't answer. Chloe continued, "By the way, did you have a fight with Ethan?" My heart skipped a beat, my nails digging into my palm. "What's wrong? Did he contact you?" Chloe laughed nonchalantly. "He just called me. He asked if you've been busy lately. I figured you two must have had a tiff." I forced a laugh. "No, he probably just asked casually," Chloe said dismissively. "All right, I know your little heart." So I went ahead and organized a get-together. Tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. at the Grand Imperial, room 8188. I've invited Noah and the others. Before hanging up, Chloe's tone suddenly became serious. She said, "Ava, I see how you're with Ethan. You're 28 this year, not 18. Stop dawdling. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, let it go. Don't waste your whole life on one man." I relaxed my clenched fist and just said, "Okay." I met Ethan through Chloe. If it weren't for the coincidence of being assigned to the same dorm, someone like me would probably never have come into contact with the upper class. In the first semester of my freshman year, Chloe invited me to her coming-of-age party. The Kim family had booked the entire seaside resort, from the entrance to the main hall. It was filled with Chloe's favorite hydrangeas. The air was thick with the scent of extravagance. I hid behind Chloe, completely unable to adapt to such an occasion. And that was my first meeting with Ethan. Ethan was no different from the typical rich second-generation kids. He drove a luxury car, wore designer clothes, and even his leather shoes were polished to a mirror shine. But he was also a little different. He was exceptionally handsome and tall. He stood out even among a group of rich kids. Chloe introduced me to her friends. Ethan, along with the others, laughed at me for hiding behind Chloe like a timid quail. "I know you, Ava, the top scorer from the southern province. How did you end up with Chloe?" Ethan asked with a smile, his eyes full of amusement. Chloe cursed at him and told him to get lost. He argued with Chloe for a bit, then saw my downcast face and lost interest. Ethan waved his hand, turned to the others, and started joking around again, not giving me a second glance. That was my first impression of him. For a long time after that, I didn't see Ethan. Chloe would occasionally call him to talk about business. Every time she hung up, she would complain to me about Ethan's wolfish ambition. Ethan's father has 7 sons, and Ethan's mother was a mistress. Chloe sighed. In his situation, he would be better off getting a larger share of the inheritance while his father still favors him. He could live a life of luxury. Why does he have to fight for a career? But I felt that having ambition and goals was not a bad thing. Instead of entrusting your future to others, It's better to hold it firmly in your own hands. The next time I saw Ethan was when my own brother, Leo, was beating me at the school gate. Leo had contacted me many times, demanding that I use my ID to help him get an online loan. He said he had a big business deal, but I had refused and blocked his contact information because I knew that Leo had no business sense. He would just mess everything up. But I never thought he would be so desperate as to come looking for me and to resort to violence, disregarding our sibling bond. I was being beaten on the ground. The students who wanted to intervene were scared off by Leo's crazed eyes. And Ethan, like a hero in a cape, kicked Leo over and saved me from near despair. Later, when Chloe returned from her vacation, Ethan had already taken care of everything. He had bought all the videos of the incident and had sent Leo to prison. Not a ripple was made online. And on that day, I completely cut ties with my family. When Chloe heard about it, she was amazed. She said, "From what I know of Ethan, he's not one to meddle in other people's business. He must have some ulterior motive for helping you." I remained non-committal and soon became Ethan's most capable assistant. But I was willing. I knew Ethan had wolfish ambition, and I knew he desperately needed to cultivate his own trusted circle. And I was a good candidate. A bookworm who had been tormented by her family and had just been a little unlucky. So, I taught myself accounting, obtained my CPA certificate, and personally managed the company's finances, going through fire and water for him without a single complaint, until he no longer needed me. From 18 to 28, I had been by Ethan's side for 10 years. I had seen his triumphs in the business world, and I had also witnessed his moments of despair. I had fallen for him because of his help, and I had developed feelings for him through our daily interactions. Ethan was the most outstanding man I knew. Many people saw my feelings and mockingly called me his lapdog. Behind my back, Ethan knew too. He was smarter than anyone. He told me that smart people don't talk about feelings, and business people don't talk about love. Until 2 years ago, when he personally fired me, compensating me with N2. I knew he no longer needed me, but I was unwilling to let go. So I joined my current company and brazenly appeared at a partnership meeting. I even took the initiative to raise my glass and call out to him, "Mr. Joe, would you do me the honor?" Ethan gave me plenty of face, drinking one glass after another. And at the end of the banquet, we became entangled like ancient beasts, willingly letting alcohol kill all our reason. The next day, I woke up first and, despite my aching body, left without looking back. 2 months later, today, I confirmed my pregnancy with the child of the man I had secretly loved for 10 years. When I arrived at the Grand Imperial, Chloe had just arrived too. She slapped me on the back and scolded, "Is work more important than me? I haven't seen you in 2 months. I quickly soothed her. You're definitely more important. I even skipped a team meeting tonight. Of course you're more important." But Chloe was not appeased. She rolled her eyes and said sarcastically, "Come on. If I hadn't invited Ethan, you would have found an excuse to turn me down." I wanted to say more, but Noah and the others arrived one after another, so I couldn't. "Ava." Noah patted my shoulder and smiled. "It's been a long time. We haven't seen each other since you left Ethan's." Noah was Chloe and Ethan's childhood friend. A good, nothing rich second generation kid who loved online games. He was also the relatively easy going one in their circle, at least on the surface. He didn't show any dislike for me. I greeted him politely and followed Chloe into the room. The other friends also arrived one after another. Chloe chatted with everyone about the latest gossip in their circle, while I sat on the side, smiling and not speaking. As usual. After all, I couldn't really join their conversations. I had never truly been a part of their circle. But Ethan hadn't shown up by the time dinner started. Chloe was texting, then leaned over and whispered to me. "He said he's coming. He's probably just held up by something." Noah, sitting next to us, overheard and smiled. "Are you talking about Ethan? He said he was going to pick someone up. He should be here soon." I looked up at him, stunned, and caught a flicker of amusement in his eyes. But before I could react, the door opened. Ethan came in, bringing a gust of cold wind with him, like an ice blade that pierced the heart I had been guarding for so long. And then I saw a delicate pink figure hiding behind him, making him seem less cold. The girl looked young, her bright eyes full of innocence. After a moment of silence, the room quickly became lively again. The friends started teasing. Hey, Ethan, who's this? This is a private party for friends. Why did you bring an outsider? Yeah, Ethan has been so well behaved all these years. Where did this little sister come from? My mind was a jumble, a roaring in my ears. I unconsciously placed my hand on my lower abdomen. Ethan took off his coat and handed it to a waiter, then thoughtfully helped the girl take off her coat. He put his arm around her and gestured for everyone to be quiet. Then he announced grandly, "This is Amelia, my girlfriend. It took me a long time to win her over, so please keep it down and don't scare her." At his words, the room became even more boisterous. The cheers and jeers almost blew the roof off. In the chaos, I looked up, dazed, and my gaze met Ethan's deep, bottomless eyes. Cold, indifferent, a look devoid of any emotion. In that moment, I understood. This child could not be kept. Ethan sat down with Amelia, and everyone started asking about their love story. Amelia was blushing and a little shy, but she still shared in a small voice. Our first meeting was full of fireworks. 2 years ago, at an auction held in Pine Creek, we almost got into a fight over an exhibit. A friend asked, "So who won in the end?" Amelia looked up at Ethan, who was smiling at her. She said, "Of course I won." And then Ethan got my contact information. 2 years ago, Pine Creek auction. These keywords were like a knife stabbing into my numb heart. It was shortly after the Pine Creek auction that Ethan had fired me. He said he was giving me my freedom, that I deserved better. For a moment, I didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. Relieved that he thought my presence would hinder his pursuit of love, and disappointed that he had never had a single feeling for me. But Chloe couldn't take it anymore. She slammed her wine glass on the table and said to Ethan with a cold face, "Ethan, I organized this gathering for friends. You didn't even give me a heads up that you were bringing an outsider. This is not appropriate." Ethan's face also turned cold. He put one hand on Amelia's shoulder and picked up his teacup with the other, saying calmly, "Amelia is not an outsider. She is my girlfriend now, and she will be my wife in the future." Amelia blinked at Chloe, as if she didn't understand why she was angry. The other friends looked at me with amusement, as if they were waiting for the drama to unfold. Chloe was about to say more, but I tugged at her sleeve from under the table. Chloe instantly deflated. She rolled her eyes and said, "Fine. Then I wish you two a long and happy life together in advance." Ethan raised his glass, but his gaze fell on me. He smiled and said, "I'll take that as a blessing." "Chloe." I forced a smile and lowered my gaze. A little while later, Chloe called me to leave. Noah tried to mediate. "Chloe, we haven't all been together in so long. Don't go." He glanced at me and said, "Ava too. It's been so long. Stay a little longer." Chloe rubbed her temples and said impatiently, "I'm in a bad mood. I don't want to accidentally hurt someone's family. I won't be a bother here." With that, she grabbed her bag and walked out, pulling me along with her. Before I left, I felt a burning gaze on my back. I looked back but saw nothing. Ethan was with his girlfriend, laughing and joking with his friends. These were people from the same circle. In the car, Chloe said angrily, "What's Ethan's problem? Did he bring a woman here to put on a show of affection for me?" I smiled helplessly. "Maybe it's true love." Chloe rolled her eyes. With his calculating nature, love is not as important as money in his eyes. "I think he's just trying to disgust you. Everyone knows how you feel about him." "Yeah," I said. And he succeeded. "I'm really disgusted." Chloe looked at me, stunned. Perhaps she had never thought I would say something like that. But what I said was true. I really was going to be sick. I asked the driver to pull over. I squatted by the side of the road and dry heaved. Chloe was amazed. "Ava, I'm really impressed this time. You actually got sick from being disgusted by Ethan." My face was flushed, and tears streamed down my face. And to think I had even looked forward to Ethan's reaction when he found out I was pregnant. Now it seemed he probably didn't even want to remember that reckless night. Chloe patted my back and sighed. "Ava, Ethan is an old fox. He can coax his father into liking him the most among 7 sons. And he can coax you into going through fire and water for him. I've told you before that Ethan is not one to meddle in other people's business. He helped you back then just to buy your loyalty. You were the only one foolish enough to actually give your all for him. Yes. How could I not know? But the pain from my family was too deep. So deep that I willingly clung to this ray of light that had fallen into my life. I have never regretted my decision. Chloe drove me home. Before she left, she said, "Ava, I'm still a little worried. If Ethan contacts you, please don't lose your head." I smiled and shook my head, telling her to be safe on the way home and to get some rest. The night was exceptionally quiet alone. I was curled up in my blankets, my hands and feet cold. I wondered, would Ethan contact me? And just before dawn, I received a call from him. After I answered, the only sound on the line was the intertwining of our breaths, just like that drunken night. Then Ethan's calm voice broke the silence. He said, "Amelia is very sensitive. She asked me who you are." I asked back, "And who did you tell her I am?" "Mr. Joe." Ethan chuckled lightly. "Who could you be?" "You're Chloe's friend. And you're my friend, Ava. We're friends." I laughed too, letting hot tears fall onto the blanket, where they were absorbed, leaving only a faint trace. I said with a smile, "Yes, Mr. Joe, we're just friends." My tone was as if I were genuinely happy for him. Ethan hung up. 2 minutes later, I received a message. $2 million had been transferred to my account. Amazing. The hush money for one reckless night was more than the compensation for 10 years of loyal service. I caressed my lower abdomen, my heart full of sorrow. When Chloe's call came in, the anesthesia had worn off. I was a little dizzy, and there was a slight pulling sensation in my lower abdomen. I was going to reject the call, but I accidentally answered. I can't believe it. That Amelia has made me her imaginary rival. She actually called me and warned me to stay away from her, Ethan. Chloe was furious, her voice laced with a hint of drunkenness. "Is she in a soap opera?" I rubbed my temples. "How did she get your number?" "I don't know. Maybe she snooped on Ethan's phone," Chloe said angrily. "And Ethan is actually serious about this one. I heard they're already preparing to get engaged." "Really?" I said weakly. "Then congratulations to him." Chloe heard my discomfort and asked in a small voice, "Ava, what's wrong?" I replied, "It's nothing. Just period cramps." "All right," Chloe said with regret. "I was going to ask you out for a drink tonight. You should get some rest. I'll call you in a few days." After hanging up, I waited for a while. Seeing that there was no significant discomfort, I informed the nurse, who cut off my wristband and let me leave. When I got home, the floor was covered in unpacked luggage. I hesitated for a moment, but decided to follow the doctor's orders and get some rest. But in bed, I couldn't help but cry. I don't know if I was crying for the life that was given up before it had a chance to form, or for my unrequited love. After 3 days of bed rest, I finally got up to pack my things. I was planning to ask Chloe out for a get-together and tell her I was moving, although she would definitely be angry. It was better than me just disappearing. But before I could call Chloe, Ethan's call came in again. It was strange. Ethan's calls these days were more than in the 2 years I had been away from him combined. "You've quit your job at the company." Ethan got straight to the point. His tone was unreadable. I habitually touched the hot water bottle on my lower abdomen and said calmly, "Yes." "Why?" Ethan pressed. I chuckled lightly. "Thanks to your $2 million, Mr. Joe. I've decided to take a good long rest." Ethan was silent. Just as I was about to hang up, he spoke again. "Ava, the business world is a battlefield. With your qualifications, you could have a great career at the company, even better than when you were with me. I don't understand why you would rest." I thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Joe, I'm not like you. I don't have any ambition, and I don't have a complicated family. I just want to be an ordinary person. Thank you for your help all these years. I've already gotten what I wanted." Ethan was a little angry. "Do whatever you want. As an old acquaintance, I just don't want to see you miss your opportunity." "Thank you, Mr. Joe." Ethan hung up. I suddenly had a feeling that this might be our last conversation. When Chloe found out I was leaving, she was, as expected, both angry and furious. She even threatened to go and beat Ethan up for me. I smiled and soothed her. "It's not just because of Ethan. I have things I want to do too." Chloe's eyes reddened. "Can't you do what you want to do by my side?" I was at a loss for words, unable to find an excuse. But Chloe took a deep breath and threw a pillow at me. saying through gritted teeth, "No matter where you go, you'll always be my best friend." I let out a long sigh of relief and said with certainty, "No matter where I go, Chloe will always be my best friend." "So have you decided where you're going?" Chloe asked. I hesitated for a moment and said, "I haven't really thought about it, but there's one place I have to go first." Stepping onto the path of my childhood after 10 years, I felt no joy. After all, I had studied hard for 3 years just to escape this place. But when I saw my mother, a wave of sadness washed over me. A woman of only 50. She was as withered as a dead branch. My mother's eyes reddened when she saw me. She had been a timid woman all her life. Yet she had given birth to a stubborn mule like me, and a son who was like a bandit. "Ava, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I was useless," she begged me, repeating her apologies over and over. I felt a strange taste in my mouth. I asked her, "Mom, if you agree, I'll take you away from here, away from the Lee family. We can live together, just the two of us." But my mother hesitated. She gripped my arm and asked, "Where are you going? Can you ask that big boss to let your brother out? He's been in prison for 10 years. He's learned his lesson." I was struck by lightning, and I shook my head in disappointment. Leo is in prison for endangering public safety and fraud. He deserves it. Oh my God. 15 years. He'll be almost 40 when he gets out. How will he get married? How will he start a family? My mother pulled at me, wailing, her voice getting louder and louder. I calmed myself and asked. Leo was sentenced to 15 years, with good behavior in prison. His sentence should be reduced. He might be out in a couple of years. But my mother just shook her head and cried. I pressed on. "Mom, didn't you ask when you and Dad visited him? Is he not eligible for a reduced sentence?" Only then did my mother say, "You know your brother's temper, and you have the nerve to ask. You're the one who ruined him." Learning that Leo's sentence had not been reduced, I no longer wanted to stay. I pushed my mother away and turned to leave. Sure enough, as soon as I started the car, I saw my father walking towards the house with a sickle in his hand, cursing. When he saw me, he looked at me like I was his enemy. My mother also rushed out of the courtyard, shouting, "Get her." I sneered and stepped on the gas, speeding away. From then on, I had no lingering feelings for the past. My father was a misogynist, an alcoholic, and a domestic abuser. My mother was weak and had no opinions of her own. So they had raised a daughter like me, stubborn yet insecure, and had also indulged their beloved son, Leo, into becoming a ruthless criminal. I used to hate both of them, but now that I had a child, I actually felt a little sorry for my mother. No matter how she treated me, she had at least gone through the pain of childbirth to bring me into this world. So I wanted to take her out of the abyss, to give her and myself a chance. But she didn't choose me, so I would no longer cling to this shallow mother-daughter bond. The city of Haven was a coastal city, located in the northern hemisphere's warm temperate zone, with 4 distinct seasons and no scorching summers. I grew up in the mountains, surrounded by endless hills. Every day, I would run and run, but I could never get over that mountain. So I longed for the sea, for endless freedom. And Haven was the city I had always longed for. Chloe came with me to Haven for a few days without a second thought. Before she left, she even declared that she wanted to settle down in Haven too. She said the air here tasted of sea salt. I said it was the smell of the sea. I smiled and saw her off at the airport. I also understood that a young lady like her, bound by her family, was not as free as I was. "Ava, I really admire you. You look so timid, but you said goodbye to the past without hesitation." Chloe touched my face and sighed. I was worrying for nothing. I gently hugged her, my eyes welling up. "Have I ever told you that meeting you is the greatest fortune of my life?" Chloe hugged me back and smiled. "Yes. And, because of me, you've used up all your romantic luck. So now that you're leaving me, you can seize the romantic opportunities around you." After Chloe left, I returned to my rental apartment alone. A strange city, a strange home. It would be a lie to say I didn't feel anything. I felt an unprecedented sense of loneliness, but hidden deep in my heart was a longing for the future. After settling in, I went to the beach, rented a tour boat, and threw the processed placenta into the waves. This was a true farewell to the past, but I was caught on surveillance camera and fined 500 yuan for littering. After 10 years as a finance professional, I was a little sad to let it go. But since I had decided to start over, I couldn't complain. But my mind was not as sharp as it used to be. I even failed one of my teacher certification exams on the first try. But after diligent studying, I finally got my certificate. And then, just under the age limit, I passed the exam to become a teacher at Haven's 3rd Middle School. Doing the new teacher training with a group of young faces, I didn't feel out of place at all. In fact, I was full of motivation. When Chloe heard I had gotten a teaching position, she was speechless. Wasn't being a finance professional hard enough for you? Now you're a teacher. Don't you know that teaching is the most life-shortening profession of them all? You don't understand. I feel incredibly honored to be able to cultivate talented individuals for the country. Chloe hung up. I shrugged. I wouldn't stoop to the level of a rich second-generation kid. Actually, before I met Ethan, I had planned to go to graduate school for education. If I were lucky, I might have even been able to apply to teach in a mountainous region and meet a girl like me who couldn't see a future in the mountains. But that dream was delayed for more than a decade and was finally realized when I was 32. I had been in Haven for 2 years. I would occasionally talk to Chloe on the phone and hear news about Ethan. I heard he got married in April of this year. The wedding was very grand, with guests from both the political and business worlds. Even Chloe, who had seen it all, was amazed. That Amelia's family is a 4th-generation political family. No wonder Ethan was so eager. He's the most calculating man I've ever seen. I just smiled and quietly changed the subject. Of course. I didn't tell Chloe that I had also received an electronic invitation from Ethan in my email. It was probably a mass mailing. In any case, I deleted it without even opening it. After all, for a wedding of that caliber, I couldn't afford such a large gift. Later, on a quiet night, I received a call from an unknown number. I thought it was a student and answered without much thought. But a strange female voice came from the other end. Ava, I'm Amelia. You know me, right? But before I could speak, I heard Ethan roar, "Are you crazy?" And then the call was disconnected. The next morning, Ethan called. I didn't answer. I went to the mobile operator's office and got a new number. A week later, I went back and canceled my old number. When Chloe's message came in, I had just finished a public lecture. Before I could open my phone, a colleague from my department rushed over and asked, "Miss Lee, what do you think of that Mr. Tang I introduced you to last time?" I was taken aback and smiled awkwardly. "We had a coffee on the weekend. Why didn't you tell me he's 6 years younger than me?" 6 years is good. 6 years is great. A woman 6 years older brings good fortune. Her words made me so embarrassed I wanted to dig a hole and hide. I never thought that at 34, I could still attract a younger man. His name was Kai Tang. He was a police officer at the West City branch, tall and handsome, and lived in the same apartment building as my colleague. Although I don't know how my colleague coaxed him into going on a blind date with me, I had a good impression of him. After all, everyone appreciates beauty. Who doesn't like a younger man? But I couldn't do something so unconscionable. I tried to refuse my colleague. I'm 6 years older than him. He's a young, spirited man. He might not be interested in me. You should introduce him to a girl his own age. But my colleague said, I asked Kai first. He's very satisfied with you. He even sent me a watermelon to thank me for introducing you to him. I was at a loss for words. My colleague immediately said, Kai is a great guy. He has a good education, a good job. His parents have a pension. And he even bought a house in full for his wedding. As my colleague went on and on, I was trying to figure out how to interrupt her when Chloe's call came like a lifeline. I immediately held up my phone. I have to take this call. Thank you, Mrs. Wong. Miss Lee, you should really consider it. Kai is a good catch. Because I had accidentally answered. Chloe heard the last sentence on the other end and asked, Who's Kai? I quickly walked away from the teaching building and said in a small voice, a blind date my colleague set me up with. He's 6 years younger than me. Chloe was shocked. Well, look at you, eating up the young pups. I was even more speechless and really wanted to hang up on Chloe. Stop it. What's up? Chloe giggled and said loudly, I'm getting married. This time, it was my turn to be shocked. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. Compatibility is what matters, Chloe said with a shrug. as if she had forgotten her old vow never to be a pawn in a marriage of convenience. But I hope you find happiness in your marriage. After all, this is about the rest of your life. I hesitated, but still said what I thought, although I understood that Chloe's view of marriage was different from mine, because we were from different social classes. Actually, Chloe hesitated, then explained, for me, interests are more important than emotions. Since I have to get married, I have to choose the most suitable person for me. And for the Kim family. I paused, then chuckled. All right, I understand. As a friend, I will always support and bless your decision. I accept your blessing. And when the wedding date is set, I'll send it to you, no matter what anyone says. You're my only maid of honor. After hanging up, I looked up and saw that the sunset had painted the white roof of the teaching building orange. It was a heart-warming sight. Unknowingly, we had all reached the age of marriage. Chloe had found her place, and forget it. I shook my head in self-mockery. I had overcome so many obstacles to get to where I was today. Why should I worry about an ethereal thing like love? Enjoying the present was the best choice. Chloe's wedding date was set quickly, but because it involved two prominent families, a long preparation time was set aside. I estimated the time and felt it was very ample, so I started preparing for my own promotion first. Of course, in the midst of all this, I still had to deal with Kai. As my colleague had said, Kai was quite satisfied with me. He sent me a bouquet of flowers every week like clockwork, which was a bit overwhelming. Can you please stop buying me flowers? I'm not very good at taking care of them. Looking at the withering bouquets, I couldn't help but send Kai a message. After Kai replied with an okay, I received a bouquet of soap flowers the next day. They have ornamental value, Kai said. And they're also practical. I chose them very carefully. Do you like them? I pursed my lips and asked. Practical in what way? Kai plucked off a petal, sprinkled some water on it, and rubbed it. The petal turned into foam. He said proudly, you can put it in the bathroom. That way, you'll think of me every time you wash your hands. I was so speechless by his cheesiness. Unknowingly, Chloe's wedding was approaching, and after receiving countless various artificial flowers from Kai, I had gotten to know him a lot better, but I had never agreed to be his girlfriend. I had never been in a relationship. I really didn't know how to maintain a healthy one. Chloe said I was too cautious. She said you have to say it when you love someone, or it will just fade away. But I asked her, what if I get with him, and then we find out we're not a good match? Chloe let out a strange cry and then said, if you're not a good match, then break up. People can get divorced even after they're married. You're just dating. Do you want to be with him for a lifetime? I remained non-committal. A small crack seemed to appear in my closed heart. Before I left, Kai drove me to the airport. I protested. Can you please stop giving me flowers? Kai smiled. If you become my girlfriend, I'll stop. I was speechless and didn't dare to say anything more. At the airport, Kai followed behind me, chattering away, reminding me to take my vitamins, and saying that the weather there was not good, so I shouldn't go out wandering around. It was very annoying. I snatched my boarding pass and said, I'll be very busy these next few days. Don't just call me whenever you want. Kai pouted. I know. I'm going to a training too. I'll be very busy. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but smile. Then I said quickly, when I get back, I'll tell you something. While Kai was still standing there, stunned, I quickly rushed through the security checkpoint. When he came to his senses, Kai, who didn't have a ticket, was stopped by security at the cordon. He could only shout, what is it? I saw him jumping up and down in frustration and smiled and waved. Perhaps the happy mood lasted for a long time. When I saw Chloe, who I hadn't seen in a long time, there was still a smile on my face. Why are you smiling so giddily? Chloe raised an eyebrow, getting straight to the point. Did the little Tang pup get promoted? I rolled my eyes. What little Tang pup? His name is Kai Tang. Chloe patted my shoulder. Ava, if you like him, be with him. If you don't, say goodbye. You can't be one of those girls who strings people along. I smiled and didn't say anything, but my earlier happy mood had vanished. Kai was a good guy. He deserved to meet someone better to be his lifelong partner. The wedding of a wealthy family was magnificent but tedious, and as the bride's only maid of honor, I was so busy I was running around like a headless chicken. Everyone else has a perfect group of 10 groomsmen and bridesmaids. Why am I the only unlucky one at your wedding? I complained, with dark circles under my eyes. But Chloe just shrugged, completely unconcerned about my well-being. Because you're my only good friend. All right. Her words pleased me. So, what if it was a little hard? I could just eat some sesame pills to replenish my energy. I was so easily satisfied. I threw myself back into preparing the wedding details. And in my spare moments, I would reply to the little Tang pups messages. Chloe, who was choosing jewelry, suddenly looked up at me and said, "By the way, did I tell you?" I looked up, confused. She said, "Ethan got divorced last month. And at a dinner party, he got drunk and said he regretted it, that he was actually in love with you. After he sobered up, he even came to me and asked how you were doing." I felt nothing after hearing this, but under Chloe's teasing gaze, I asked, confused, "It's only been so long. Why did they suddenly get a divorce?" Chloe sneered. Because the Amelia family fell from power. Amelia's father was removed from his position. Although it hasn't been in the news, everyone in our circle knows. Ethan is really ruthless. He didn't even show her any mercy. I didn't speak, but I agreed with Chloe. When Ethan needed me, he was all over me. When he didn't, he just sent me 2 million and was done with it. In that sense, I had a relatively clean break with him. Chloe crossed her arms and looked at me with a sly smile. She asked, "Aren't you curious what I told Ethan about you?" I shrugged helplessly. What good could you say about him? You probably told him I was doing great, and then used that as an opportunity to mock him. You know me so well. Chloe laughed loudly. I told him you got married a long time ago, that you have 2 children in 3 years, and that he's too late to even get a taste of the leftovers. I threw a pillow at her and cursed her for ruining my reputation behind my back. Chloe laughed and dodged. I chased her with the pillow. We played for a long time before we stopped, both of us panting, and collapsed on the sofa. After a long while, Chloe chuckled softly. Although Ethan is rich and handsome, he's also a second-hand man. I still think the little Tang pup is better. At least he's clean. I rolled my eyes. He's not a little Tang pup. His name is Kai Tang. If you call him that again, I'll get angry. Chloe giggled. But then she asked cautiously, "Ava, promise me you won't get back with him." I looked up at the white ceiling and suddenly remembered the morning after that reckless night. At that time, I was lying on a white bed, my body aching. I could only see the white ceiling when I opened my eyes. When I turned my head, Ethan was facing away from me, his back cold and indifferent. His coldness was born in his bones, born in the twisted atmosphere of the Zhou family. I couldn't warm him, and he didn't need my warmth. So I chose to flee. Then, because of the unexpected pregnancy, I had a glimmer of hope. But that hope was later dashed. And when I stepped into the operating room, Ethan and I were completely over. There was no happy ending for us, and the ending was already set in stone. After a long while, I said firmly, "I've already made my choice." Chloe gave me a deep look, then patted my shoulder, as if in silent support. Although I knew Ethan would be at the wedding, I didn't expect him to corner me in the dressing room. "Long time no see," Ethan said. He looked the same as before, but there was a strange feeling about him. He was wearing a well-tailored suit, his expression clean and sharp, with no sign of anything unusual. I nodded and looked him in the eye. "Long time no see. But Chloe's wedding is about to start, so I won't catch up with you now." As I walked past him, Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. I tried to pull away but couldn't. "Let go of me," I said, my voice low with annoyance. Ethan was taken aback. He let go of my hand and said, "I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk to you." I looked up at him and asked, "Mr. Joe, there's a time and place for everything." Ethan looked at me silently and said, "Can we talk after the wedding?" I glanced at the time and just said, "We have nothing to talk about." I lifted my dress and left. Ethan stood there, motionless. For some reason, I looked back and saw him standing there, looking a little lonely and pitiful. The day after the wedding, Chloe started packing for her honeymoon in Indonesia, and I started packing to go back to Haven. Suddenly, Chloe called out to me, "Ava, Ethan is organizing a party to wish me a happy marriage." My movements froze. I buckled my suitcase and zipped it up, all in one smooth motion. I stood up, rubbing my sore knees, and said, "Let's go. We have nothing to do tonight anyway." Chloe nodded and replied to the message. Chloe and I went to the Grand Imperial together. Since it was a party for Chloe's friends, her husband didn't come along. It was the same old crowd. We had seen each other at Chloe's wedding, but I felt a sense of discomfort from the bottom of my feet. The circle I had tried so hard to fit into now felt completely alien to me after so many years. Ethan was sitting in a very prominent position. He stood up as soon as we came in. I had never seen him so enthusiastic. He handed Chloe a gift, a Patek Philippe watch. Then he also had a gift for me. I smiled awkwardly, not sure whether to accept it or not. Chloe just took it for me. Mr. Joe is so generous. But Ava doesn't like Patek Philippe. I'll take this one too. Ethan just smiled and didn't say anything. Then he pulled out a chair for me. I didn't refuse and sat down next to him. The others just smiled and watched us with interest. I felt a strong sense of discomfort, although it was nominally a celebration for Chloe's wedding. The main topic of conversation at the dinner table was me, like where I had gone, what I was doing now, and when I was coming back. I said frankly, Haven, a very beautiful coastal city. I got my teaching certificate and have settled down there. Noah, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, suddenly teased. No way, Ava. The economy in Haven is not good. You should come back. We can all get together more often. Before I could speak, Ethan, sitting next to me, said, I think Haven is great. The project development prospects are also very good. Suddenly, the topic at the dinner table turned to Haven's economic environment and investment value. I smiled and shook my head, then leaned over to Ethan, who had been leaning against me, and interrupted his business blueprint. Mr. Joe, let's go out and talk. Ethan was taken aback for a moment, then immediately stood up. Noah knowingly whistled. Chloe grabbed my arm. I patted her shoulder reassuringly. Where are you going? Ethan asked, sitting in the driver's seat. He had a cigarette in his mouth but hadn't lit it. I had once hinted that I hated the smell of smoke, and this was the first time he hadn't lit a cigarette in front of me. Let's go to a university, I said, crossing my arms and looking at the scenery outside the window. A university was where it all began. I met Chloe there, and I met Ethan there. So many years had passed. I wanted to end it all there. No matter what reason Ethan had for showing me goodwill, I didn't want to get lost in the past. Unfortunately, we couldn't get into the university. The security guard said that because the school was hosting an international competition for 3 days before the opening ceremony, only people with student or faculty cards could enter. Ethan wanted to use his connections to get in, but I stopped him. Let's just walk around. You haven't been to the park next to the school, have you? Let's go. I walked in front, and Ethan followed behind. The orange light of the street lamps cast our shadows on the road, and as we walked, our shadows kept overlapping and separating. After a long while, Ethan suddenly said, I wasn't drunk that night. My footsteps halted. I looked at the shadows on the ground, feeling the quiet of the night. I nodded and said, I know. I worked with you for so many years. I know that a little bit of alcohol can't get you drunk. Ethan walked forward and stopped a fist's distance away from me, so his voice was even clearer. So that night was willing for me, and unforgettable. I couldn't help but find it amusing. I turned to look at him. I looked at his high nose bridge, cast in shadow by the street lamp, and at his dark pupils, reflecting my own image. I asked back, so what? I don't think a one-night stand is something Mr. Joe would remember for so many years. Ethan lowered his eyes, his tall frame trembling slightly. He said, I regret it. It was only after I lost you that I realized how important you were to me. It was a flawless love confession, but it sounded awkward and piercing to my ears. Thanks to Kai's particular taste in cheesy short dramas, there was a overbearing CEO in a chasing his wife's crematory drama who said the exact same thing. I quickly raised my hand to stop Ethan. Don't say it. It doesn't fit your character. And it's impossible between us. A flicker of confusion crossed Ethan's eyes. He was about to speak. Suddenly, a shrill female voice interrupted our conversation. Hey, do you remember me? I turned to look. It was a woman with a child. Her figure was a bit bulky, but her face was somewhat familiar. But I couldn't remember who she was. Perhaps seeing my confusion, she pointed to the child next to her and gestured. At the maternity hospital. Our due dates were around the same time. Right. I even asked you to join a postpartum recovery group with me, but we never did. But you've recovered so well. You can't even tell you've had a child. Unlike me, I'm all swollen. In a flash of lightning, I remembered who she was, but I couldn't stop her from finishing her sentence. Sure enough, Ethan's face had turned black to the extreme. I quickly said, "I'm sorry. You must have the wrong person." But the other person was very certain and continued, "Impossible. I'm not good at studying, but I'm great at remembering people. I can remember anyone I've met even once, let alone that our due dates were so close. That's a rare fate." Before she could finish, I grabbed Ethan and ran. Although drama comes from reality, I never dreamed that reality would be so dramatic. After walking and running for a long distance, I was a little out of breath and leaned against a wall, panting. My heart was beating like a drum, and I don't know if it was from the exercise or from nervousness. Ethan's face was extremely dark. He asked in a cold voice, "What did that woman mean?" I took a deep breath to calm myself, but I felt a sense of release. "I was going to keep this a secret for the rest of my life," I said, "but I never thought I would meet her." Ethan pursed his lips and didn't speak, but his eyes were filled with endless sorrow. I looked at him frankly. After that night, I found out I was pregnant. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. He opened his mouth, and his voice became small. "Why didn't you tell?" I cut him off. I said, "I was going to tell you, but before I could, you brought Amelia." Ethan didn't speak, and I didn't speak. After a long while, Ethan asked in a trembling voice, "And the child?" I said directly, "I had an abortion." Ethan grabbed my shoulders, his grip so tight it felt like he was going to crush me. His eyes were red, his expression twisted into a cloud that wouldn't disperse. In the night, it was a bit terrifying. I gritted my teeth and didn't speak, cursing him countless times in my heart. This bastard. I don't know what he ate to grow up to be so strong. But Ethan's face was dark and blue. He struggled for a long time before he finally calmed down. He gradually loosened his grip on me, and as if he had compromised with himself, he whispered in my ear in a trembling, out of tune voice, "It's okay, Ava. We're still young. I interrupted his fantasy and told him calmly, "Mr. Joe, it's not. You and I are separate." Ethan gave a bright smile and released my arms. He lit a cigarette with a trembling hand, took a deep drag, and then, as if he had remembered that I didn't like the smell of smoke, he threw it on the ground and stomped it out. I stared at the tips of my feet, at my faded canvas shoes and Ethan's polished leather shoes. I said, "Mr. Joe, let's part on good terms. I took your $2 million. I should have left cleanly. I came back this time because of Chloe's wedding. I won't be coming back again. You and I will not see each other again." But Ethan shook his head. He said, "I regret letting you go before, but now that you and I are both single, why not give me a chance to pursue you?" Ethan and I parted on bad terms. As soon as I entered the hotel, I saw Chloe, who had already returned, looking at her phone with a displeased expression. She glanced at me and said helplessly, "What's wrong with you and Ethan? He just said in the group chat that he's going to pursue you again and asked everyone to help him." I held my forehead, speechless. I don't know what's wrong with him. But Chloe keenly caught the emotion I was trying to hide. She stood up and blocked my way, looking straight into my eyes. "Ava, are you hiding something from me?" I couldn't look Chloe in the eye for a moment, a flicker of confusion crossing my mind at being found out. But in front of the only friend in my life, I really couldn't hide it anymore. I told her about that reckless night with Ethan, and about the child who never had a chance to be born. After hearing it, Chloe cried her eyes out, calling me heartless for not telling her about such a big thing. She even insisted on taking me to the hospital for a check-up, afraid that the abortion had left some underlying problems. A warmth spread through my heart. I gently hugged Chloe and told her, "So it's impossible between me and Ethan. If I get back with him, I'll feel like I've wronged the child I gave up." At the airport, Chloe was crying and throwing a tantrum, not wanting to go on her honeymoon. She insisted on going back to Haven with me. Her husband was sweating profusely, asking me what had happened at the dinner party yesterday, and why it felt like Chloe was having second thoughts about the wedding. After comforting Chloe's husband, I managed to get Chloe on the plane with a lot of persuasion. I touched my back and found it was soaked in a cold sweat. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. My gut told me it was Ethan. After I answered, it was indeed him. Are you going back to Haven? I didn't speak. He continued on his own. Goodbye. I hung up and boarded the plane. Returning to Haven, I finally felt a sense of home. Kai was on duty and couldn't pick me up, so I took a taxi home by myself. After unpacking and preparing my lesson plans, I sent a message to Kai, asking him out for dinner. Kai replied immediately, as long as there's no last-minute work, I'll come pick you up. But just before the agreed time, Kai sent another message. I'm so sorry. A last-minute mission came up. I can't have dinner with you. I ordered you takeout. You should eat and rest early. Because of the nature of Kai's work, he was often called out on various emergencies, so I understood. When the takeout arrived, I ate early, did some digestive exercises, and went to bed. I had been so busy these past 2 days that I fell asleep quickly. For the next few days, I was busy with work and tutoring, and Kai was also busy with a last-minute mission. We actually lost contact. It was my colleague from the department who asked me how things were going with Kai that I remembered I hadn't contacted him in days. But when I invited him out, Kai took half a day to reply. It was very unusual. In the past, even when he was on an emergency mission, he would reply to my messages within an hour. Did he run into a big problem this time? I thought about it, my heart a little uneasy. In the end, I decided to go to the station to find him after work. But to my surprise, Kai wasn't out on a mission. He was at the station, but he didn't look well. He seemed sleep-deprived. Officer Tang. I greeted him. I was wondering if you have time for dinner with me. Kai was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. We were silent all the way. While waiting for a red light, I asked with concern, what's wrong? Have you been very tired lately? Kai looked out the window, shook his head, and said, it's nothing. I just have something on my mind. At the restaurant, he tugged at my sleeve, his face a little embarrassed. Are we eating here? Isn't it a bit expensive? I nodded and smiled. I said before I left that I wanted to tell you something when I got back, so I arranged it in a quiet and private place. Kai let go of my sleeve and followed me into the hotel, but he was restless, his whole body tense with unease. After we finished our meal, I got straight to the point. There's something I want to tell you in advance. Kai sat up straight, waiting quietly for me to speak. I've never been in a relationship, never been married, but I've been pregnant and had an abortion. Kai's hand suddenly trembled, but his expression only cracked for a moment. I continued, although that's all in my past, I think I should tell you these things. Kai suddenly gave a bitter laugh, then looked into my eyes and said, that's all in the past. I have no right to interfere with your past. If you hadn't told me, I might have never known. I shook my head and chuckled lightly. I've never felt that my past is something to be ashamed of. Of course. I also don't want you to find out about it one day. I think you should take some time to process it, and then make a decision. This was the first time Kai hadn't driven me home, because when I left the hotel, he was still sitting at the dinner table, like a stiff stone statue. The evening breeze blew through my hair, sweeping across my cheeks, and a strand stuck to my face. Only then did I realize that I had been crying. If I missed out on Kai, I might not meet anyone better. So I had uncontrollably fallen for him, hoping to be loved. The pain from my family would be with me for the rest of my life, making me long for love, for a family, yet also afraid of starting one. Afraid of crying for a man. This must be what it means to be starved for love. I wiped away my tears and continued walking home. But as I walked, I felt a strong sense of unease, as if someone were following me from a distance. I gripped my bag strap, my heart pounding. The community was recently greening. The area around my apartment building was blocked off by many iron sheets, and even the streetlights were out. I walked home quickly, feeling the footsteps behind me getting faster and faster. Just as a scream was about to escape my throat, a familiar voice came from behind. Don't be afraid. It's me. I turned and saw Kai, about half a meter away from me. What are you doing here? I let out a long sigh of relief and complained. You scared me. I thought I had run into a bad guy. Kai said, I'm sorry. My mind was a mess, so I didn't drive you home. I was worried, so I came to check on you. You should go back. I'll just have a smoke and then leave. I wanted to say more, but seeing his expressionless face, I could only nod and say goodbye, then walked into the building. When I got upstairs and turned on the lights, I immediately ran to the balcony. I saw Kai standing there, smoking. He hadn't smoked in a long time. I watched him. He smoked. And when he was done, he left. My mind was in a tangle. As the high school entrance exams approached, the graduating classes had after school tutoring. I was busy until 8 or 9 every night. But as soon as I left the school, I would see Kai, his long legs straddling his electric scooter, looking down at his phone. It's just a short walk. You don't have to pick me up every day. Kai turned off his phone and smiled at me. It's on my way. I asked your property management. The streetlights and surveillance cameras will be back on tomorrow. I nodded, took the helmet Kai handed me, and sat on the electric scooter. Since Kai and I had been open with each other, we had been in this awkward atmosphere for almost a month. Kai had never mentioned dating again, but he picked me up and dropped me off at home every day like clockwork. We had been in this awkward and subtle relationship. At my doorstep, Kai said, I have a mission tomorrow. I won't be able to drive you home for a while. I nodded and told him to be safe, but after the words were out, neither of us moved. Finally, Kai rubbed his head. His usually neat hair was a mess. He sighed and said, set my number as an emergency contact. Don't try to handle things on your own if something happens. I nodded and continued to stare at him. Kai was uncomfortable under my gaze and finally gave in. He said, when I'm done, let's go to the beach together. I pursed my lips and smiled, then waved goodbye and went upstairs. Through the balcony, I saw Kai playing on his phone on the electric scooter for a while, then slowly riding away. The doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Ethan, whom I hadn't seen in months. He was wearing a proper suit. As soon as he came in, he started looking around. Although the community is a bit old, you've decorated it nicely, he commented briefly. I poured him a glass of water and asked, to what do I owe the pleasure? Mr. Joe. Ethan chuckled lightly. I said I was going to pursue you again. I held my forehead helplessly. Mr. Joe, I've already made it very clear to you last time. But Ethan said, I won't put too much pressure on you, but I hope you'll consider me first. After all, I won't be picking you up from work on an electric scooter. I glanced at him, feeling a sense of absurdity. I asked, when did you come to Haven? Ethan smiled and said, it's been a while. I've signed some business deals in Haven, and I'll be focusing on this city in the future. I sneered and then asked, so, Mr. Joe, where is your luxury car parked? Ethan's brow furrowed slightly, and his tone was a little displeased. This community is too old. The security guard at the gate wouldn't let me drive in. He added, of course. I saw you guys at the gate. I nodded in understanding. No wonder I had seen a luxury car at the community gate earlier. So you parked your car on the side of the road and walked in. Ethan nodded and took a sip of water. I smiled. We tow illegally parked cars on the side of the road. If you don't leave soon, Mr. Joe, you'll have to take a taxi back. Ethan's expression froze. He rubbed his temples, probably understanding my hint to leave. He stood up to go. As he was leaving, he suddenly said, by the way, Ava, Leo is out of prison. My breath hitched. I looked into his eyes and asked, how do you know? Ethan chuckled lightly. After all, I was the one who sent him in. After sending Kai away, Ethan came. Now, as soon as I leave the school, I see a well-dressed Ethan leaning against a luxury car, his entire aura out of place. Passing students and teachers frequently glance over, and some have even started pointing and whispering. I knew that if I pretended not to see him, he would follow me and honk his horn. So I lowered my head and got into the passenger seat. Ethan got into the driver's seat and asked, "Want to get some late night snack?" I sighed. "Mr. Joe, can you please stop picking me up? There are all sorts of rumors in the school now, and it's not a good look." But Ethan was unconcerned. Being a teacher is hard and tiring, and the salary is pitiful. "I'll give you the project in Haven. I'll give you this much for your annual salary." He showed me a number with his fingers. I gave him the middle finger in my heart. "Thanks." I sighed. Being a teacher is my dream. If the rest of my words were left unsaid. The car fell into silence. After a long while, Ethan said, "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "Why are you apologizing to me? It's not your fault." We were silent all the way. I declined Ethan's offer to take me for a late night snack, but I couldn't refuse his insistence on driving me home. He even bought a house and a parking space in the community just to be able to drive in. He had too much money to burn, but since my apartment building was being renovated, his car really couldn't get to the entrance. We had to walk the rest of the way. On the way, I said again, "You really don't have to drive me." Ethan didn't speak. He suddenly stopped and looked straight ahead. I followed his gaze and saw a strange yet familiar figure. The person was wearing a dark hoodie. The shadow from the streetlight made his expression a bit terrifying. He grinned at me. "Sister, long time no see." Prison hadn't worn away Leo's ferocity. In fact, it had added a bloody, desperate quality to him. I gripped the phone in my pocket, my fingers trembling slightly. Ethan stepped in front of me, facing Leo. He said, "I was the one who sent you in. If you have a problem, come to me." Leo sneered. The hand that had been in his hoodie pocket came out. With the movement, I saw that he was holding a dagger. "Leo, are you crazy?" I scolded. "You just got out. Do you want to go back in?" Leo looked at me with hatred, like I was his enemy. "You know I just got out. Ava, even if I go back in this time, I'm taking you with me." I was about to say more, but Ethan turned his head and whispered, "Call the police." Who knew that these two words would provoke Leo? He let out a loud cry and rushed towards us with the dagger. And Ethan, with a determined look on his face, unhesitatingly stood in front of me. In my peripheral vision, I saw a familiar face in the shadows. Kai nodded at me. I immediately understood. Ignoring everything else, I gathered all my strength and pulled Ethan's arm back. Ethan was caught off guard and pulled back. And Kai, who had been hiding for a long time, rushed out with other police officers and pinned Leo to the ground. I let out a long sigh of relief. I looked at Ethan, who was lying on the ground, stunned, and sighed. "I told you not to drive me. Otherwise, we would have caught him long ago." Ethan's lips trembled slightly. He was completely dumbfounded. Suddenly, the restrained Leo started cursing at Ethan. "You bastard. Joe, you fucking set me up. This wasn't what you said. You son of a bitch." I was stunned. Kai pressed down on Leo's neck and roared, "What do you mean? Explain yourself." A bad feeling suddenly washed over me. Sure enough, Ethan's face turned pale. The moment he met my eyes, he looked away. Before they could even get him into the police car, Leo had spilled everything. It was Ethan who had gotten him out of prison early. It was Ethan who had told him my location. Ethan wanted to stage another hero saves the damsel in distress. He had promised Leo $5 million after it was all over. Because Haven is by the sea, the summer nights can be cool. I was wrapped in Kai's jacket, looking at the pale-faced Ethan. I asked, "Why?" Ethan forced a smile and said, "I'm sorry." I looked at the starry sky and said softly, "Ethan, if you're really sorry, can you please not appear in front of me again?" Ethan's eyes reddened. He looked at me, then at Kai in the distance. He suddenly said angrily, If I had realized my feelings for you earlier, there would be no place for this kid." I looked down at Ethan, my tone tinged with mockery. "If I had seen you for who you really are earlier, I would never have had that night with you, and all of this would have never happened." Ethan gritted his teeth, his whole body trembling. I asked, "Did you meet with Kai beforehand?" But looking at Ethan's expression, I knew my guess was right. Before Kai and I had our open and honest conversation, they had met. Ethan gave a self-deprecating laugh. He said, "Yes. I went to him and told him that the person you love is me, and that he should get lost if he knows what's good for him. And I also told him that you had been pregnant with my child, and that you would never forget me." I looked at the face I had loved for so many years, and for the first time, I felt it was so ugly. With a slap, a stinging sensation spread across my palm. Ethan's face was turned to the side. He poked his cheek with his tongue, then turned his head back. He said, "That kid punched me once. You slapped me once." I took a deep breath, my nose tingling. I said in a hoarse voice, "Ethan, I don't have the energy to play your emotional games anymore." Ethan's eyes widened. Then he seemed to deflate like a punctured balloon, his shoulders slumping. He asked softly, "So, are we over?" I nodded firmly. "Yes. Let's not see each other again." Although Leo had pointed the finger at Ethan, there was no concrete evidence to convict him. Kai told me this with a look of unwillingness. I didn't react much. Instead, I asked him, before I came back, you met with Ethan, right? Kai's expression froze. Then he nodded. Yes. The night before you came back. He suddenly came to me and said he wanted to talk about you. My heart tightened. I sighed. What did he say? Kai's face was not good. He hesitated for a while before saying. He showed me something. Although I had guessed what Ethan had said to Kai that had caused his attitude towards me to change, I never thought Ethan would use a 108-page PowerPoint presentation to show off my work achievements during my years with him. After Kai finished, he clasped his hands together tightly. He stared at the tips of his toes, not daring to look at me, and just said, I don't have much to offer. I can't give you a decent life. I interrupted his self-deprecation and said sternly, so, why do you think I gave up a high-flying career in the business world to become a teacher in Haven? Kai looked up at me, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. I stood up and walked to him, slowly cupping his face, and said helplessly, Kai, I don't think my past is shameful, nor do I think it's particularly glorious, because I'm not looking back. I met you on my way to the future. You should be looking at the future with me, not dwelling on a past we didn't share. Kai opened his mouth. I just feel like I'm not good enough. I covered his mouth and interrupted him. I said, Kai, I'm only going to ask you once. Are you willing to walk into the future with me? Kai's eyes instantly turned red, and then he nodded without hesitation.